Welcome back into the Cowboys Report, everyone. Before we even get into the latest surrounding your Dallas Cowboys, I need to let you know where we stand off the field as well. We are in a bit of a subscriber battle this month against the 49ers Report. Right now, we've got a narrow lead, but as we inch closer to week 1 of the NFL season, I think we have a real chance to widen that gap. Every sub counts in these battles, and the support you show goes a long way in keeping the channel growing and making sure we bring you the best Cowboys coverage on YouTube. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, now is the time, because the next couple of days are going to be packed with non-stop updates. We're talking roster cuts, waiver wire moves, trades, injuries, and everything else that could shake up the Cowboys heading into the regular season. So again, if you want Cowboys news, the second it happens, youtube.com/cowboyst is the place to be. Now, let's dive into some of the latest injury news as we continue to wait for the full list of final roster cuts, which I fully expect to roll in throughout today. Brian Schottenheimer had a particularly encouraging update on offensive lineman Tyler Guyton, and it was the kind of thing fans needed to hear. He said, and I quote, "I think he's a little bit like Trayvon. He's trending in the right direction. Hopefully, we get him doing something out on the grass as early as this week." If you're wondering what that phrase "out on the grass" means, that's just coach speak for practicing with the team instead of being limited to rehab work. That's important because getting Guyton back into football shape rather than just recovery mode means he's making real progress. This is absolutely a positive sign. Now, whether or not he's going to be ready for week 1 is still up in the air. The recovery window has always been in that 4 to 6 week range, and week 1 was always going to be a stretch goal ambitious, but not impossible. If the opener had been scheduled for Sunday, maybe he'd have a better chance. But with it landing earlier in the week, it complicates the timeline. That said, Schottenheimer's tone was noticeably more optimistic compared to earlier comments from Mike McCarthy. When McCarthy spoke on Guyton last season, there were subtle hints that the coaching staff wasn't thrilled with how he handled his injuries and recovery process. There was a sense that he needed to attack his rehab harder, be tougher about the bumps and bruises. But this time around, that tone is gone. What we're hearing now feels supportive and positive, which suggests the organization is happy with his effort and progress. At worst, even if he doesn't play in week 1, I would expect him to be available by week 2. Of course, the Cowboys might decide not to rush him back. They could take the cautious approach, especially since there's a quick turnaround with an early game on the schedule. Playing it safe with both Guyton and Trayvon Diggs could be the smarter play in the long run. But what's clear is that the vibes are good. The team is being openly complimentary of Guyton, and that in itself is notable. Last season, the messaging around him wasn't this positive, and when you compare that to how they've spoken about Maisie Smith, it's obvious they view Guyton in a better light right now. Still, we can't sugarcoat the fact that Guyton's performance last year wasn't strong enough. He has to take a step forward because this Cowboys offense relies heavily on its offensive line being solid. When the offensive line is clicking, the ceiling for this offense is incredibly high. The pass catchers, the quarterback, the skill players, they all shine more when the protection is there. But if the line breaks down, your entire ceiling comes down with it. Even with talent elsewhere, you're limited if the line can't hold up. That's why Guyton's health matters so much. And if he can't go week 1, then all signs point to rookie Nathan Thomas stepping in as the next man up. Thomas has quietly locked down that backup left tackle role. He beat out Austin Richards, who was still playing deep into the 3rd preseason game, while Thomas didn't even need to be on the field, a clear indicator of where the staff ranks them. Now, Thomas is still raw and inexperienced, and you'd like him to get more live reps. But right now, he looks like the guy who'll step in if Guyton can't suit up in Week 1. So here's the big question I'll throw to you. Do you think Tyler Guyton will be out there for the opener? Drop your predictions in the comments. Y for yes and for no. I'll pin that question at the top for you. Switching gears, let's talk about running back Jaydon Blue. He reportedly suffered a low ankle sprain, but the word is that he's hopeful to be ready by Week 1. This update came courtesy of ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, who was first to report it. On the surface, it seems minor, and that's good news. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a little concern here. I'm not throwing up the red flag yet, but it's not exactly nothing either. Maybe it's like somewhere between beige and red, call it orange. The reason for the concern is that Blue hasn't logged a ton of football in his career. Across high school and college, his total carries are surprisingly low. Even at Boise State, he wasn't asked to handle a heavy workload. Now, the positive spin is that this keeps him fresh and probably extends his career. The negative is that his body hasn't built up that durability you want to see in a running back. And that's the thing. The Cowboys need Jaydon Blue to stay healthy. He's not going to be the feature back right away. He's not getting 15 carries a game, maybe not even 10, but his big playability is exactly the kind of spark this backfield needs. Even if he's just a situational weapon in year 1, that ability to break off chunk plays is valuable. We know Javonte Williams is locked in. He's going to be a major factor. That's not even a question. Fullback Hunter Luepke is also safe. But beyond those guys, the running back room feels unsettled. Sanders, Maffa, Deuce, Miles, they're all fighting for spots. Ideally, by the end of the season, you're looking back and saying, okay, Blue is one of our long-term pieces at running back. He doesn't have to be the only one, but he does need to be part of that foundation. Now, before we get into some cornerback updates and trade talk, let me remind you that today's show is made possible by PrizePicks. Football season is here. Both college and NFL, and PrizePicks is one of the easiest ways to get in on the action. It's simple. Pick more or less on stat projections for 2 to 6 players, and if you're right, you cash in. Some of the Week 1 promos are basically free squares, like Dak Prescott, more than half a passing yard. That's essentially a giveaway you can pair with anything else in your lineup. Download the PrizePicks app, use code CLNS, and after you play your first $5 lineup, you'll get $50 in lineups added to your account. That's free bonus action for you to work with. Check the comments and description for the link. PrizePicks, run your game. Back to the roster and injuries. Caelen Carson's situation remains a little murky. There hasn't been much in the way of updates, and while I don't want to read too much into silence, it's something worth noting. He's just at the start of that 4 to 6 week recovery timeline with the high ankle sprain, so it was always going to be a question whether he'd be ready for Week 1. The lack of noise makes me wonder if the team is already weighing whether to stash him on injured reserve. Last season, Carson got some early run, even starting against the Browns, and he looked solid. But his confidence seemed to fade, and as any cornerback will tell you, once you lose confidence, you're in trouble. Add in the shoulder issue later in the year, and it was a rough finish. Now he's banged up again, and that's concerning. The Cowboys' cornerback depth chart is going to be interesting. We know Bland, Diggs, Elam, and Booth are locks. That's 4. The 5th spot could be Keon Hall or Zion Childress, or maybe Izzy Mukwamu, who has that versatility to play multiple roles across the secondary and contribute on special teams. If Carson isn't healthy enough, I wouldn't be surprised to see him stashed on IR. The problem is, he's not the only guy in that situation. Savon Revel could be in the same boat, and the numbers just don't quite add up cleanly. It puts the Cowboys in a tough spot. So, will Carson be on the active roster Week 1? That's another one for you guys in the comments. A for yes, B for no. Now, let's shift toward roster building and possible trades. The Cowboys still have some clear needs. Defensive tackle stands out the most. Maybe another running back, maybe an extra corner. What they're more likely to do, though, is use some of their depth to swing trades for draft capital or to bring in pieces that fill those needs. If you can flip a depth player for an actual starting caliber defensive tackle, you have to consider it. Because as it stands, the idea of going into the season with only Jatuia and Perian Winfrey as your nose tackle options is flat out scary.